I'm back again, and I wanted to make a video talking about whether or not personality is innate or it is circumstantial or environmental. Basically, the nature versus nurture debate in psychology and sociology, or whatever it is. I've probably made a similar video like this in the past, but I thought that I would talk about that because I feel like in personality theory, that doesn't really get discussed in much detail at all, and it is something to consider and can explain why people have difficulty typing themselves. And I'm kind of just thinking outside the box here and kind of a impromptu video, but I would say that I do think that personality is largely genetic, and I think that most people, due to their parents' genes and their parents, each one of their parents' temperaments respectively, will almost create a composite personality type that has dynamics embedded within it, and that you go through life, you experience different things. And so, even though you experience change and different circumstances and experiences, they seem to mostly create a specific flavor on top of that innate personality. There are some people that from birth seem to be, guess what? More willful than others, for example. And other kids you see that grow up to be more timid and passive. And the children that grow up more willful, obviously their genes are playing a role, and how they're formed in the womb, and it passes through even deeper than just their genetic structure, which kind of gets philosophical and more abstract. But long story short, in the womb there can be a child that, because of their genes, kind of inherits certain temperamental proclivities that you could say derives from their cognitive makeup, how their brain is structured, and how they have been given certain because of that innate personality, that it affects their brain chemistry and kind of creates an average way that they kind of appear to the world, or whatever. But for example, what's up, y'all? You've definitely seen kids that from an early age have a overemphasized sense of self, in that they don't see the difference between themselves and other objects, and so they feel entitled to those objects, and they will acquire those objects whenever they want to. And so they see themselves extended within space on objects around them that are rightfully theirs if they're able to obtain it. And so that is pretty a strong correlate to extroverted sensation, at least within the socionics definition. And because they have that way of thinking, that mentality, then obviously they're going to build a worldview that encompasses that kind of way of relating to their environment. And so they might develop associative behaviors that are more aggressive than other kids, makes it difficult for them to be socialized, because chief aspect of socialization is the ability to give up resources and share them amongst the tribe, or share them with other people, and it creates this kind of mature economy where I have something that you need and vice versa, and instead of fighting for them in order to acquire things that are necessary for survival, we can exchange them. There can be a bartering system, or a way of buying and selling goods and services. And so in a healthy way, a kid with that, let's say kid A, that has that egocentric way of being that derives from this willful tendency that was genetically formed in the womb and inherited as the composites between their parents' traits, so on and so forth. There is a way that obviously, I mean, we know people that are like that are stable and have good relationships and can function well within society, because they aim to defend and to acquire goods and resources that benefit not only themselves, but it has a net benefit on society, right? Even if it's relative to the people that they're closest with. If there were multiple people that operated in that way, then everyone that's in a family that has that kind of person in their family fighting for their best interest, then that small community would be a better community to live in. And then you see kids that are more passive and yielding towards objects in their environment, such that they don't even really recognize that they are an object. They're an object that actually has impact on their immediate surroundings, and so they form this kind of worldview that, and this is archetypal of SI, that it's better to remove the object that causes distress in the environment rather than to contend against it. So it kind of creates, it kind of gives up its right to be, basically. And it also, there are some negative behavioral tendencies with someone who grows up with that kind of temperament, which is when it's necessary and even virtuous to contend for the possession of something or the defense of something, then and they have that kind of highly passive mentality, then they basically abdicate the responsibility to protect and to acquire necessary goods and services, or whatever the case is, if it includes competition and fighting for a better deal in a way. And so, and obviously there's positive ways, if that person grows up and they're well adjusted, that they do benefit society in a positive sense, and that they bring a sense of peace and equilibrium to an otherwise contentious environment. And if there were no people that had that kind of temperament, then there would be constant warfare at all times, and there would be no privacy, there would be no property, because it would always be raided, and it would always be you would own a property insofar as you were able to defend it. And I do think that that's a feature of ownership, generally speaking, because if you're willing to die for what you own, then you're likewise willing to steward what you own, which protecting is an aspect of stewardship. But you're also invested in the upkeep of that property and the way that it's perceived from the outside to the public. You're concerned about that. You're concerned about its functionality, and because you're the one staying in the house that you own, or the object that you care for and that's under your guardianship. And so the lack of ownership implies everything opposite of what I just said. And this can really be applicable to anything, even owning a property or renting a property. If you rent a property, you have less desire to invest in it, because it's not your investment, it's someone else's investment. And you might have an attitude of this is not my concern, I don't own the property, so if something goes wrong, or beautifying the property, that's not in your concern, because you don't care about curb appeal necessarily, because you're not selling the house and then reaping the profit from it. And so that's kind of an interesting, I've kind of been exploring that idea in general of ownership, stewardship, and it's a very interesting concept. You could apply that to children, you could apply that to relationships, you could apply that to a career versus a job, for example. A job would kind of be equivalent to a rental a place that you rent to live in, versus a career could be something that's more akin to owning a house. And the common thread within that analogy is investment. If you don't own something, you're not really passionate about investing in that place, because one, it's a job is a job for the season that's right for you in the moment. It's more circumstantial. They don't really have the clearest I'm kind of getting off of my thought. But I will say, I am understanding personality, and making my application here based upon the average person, not a person who goes through a traumatic experience or multiple traumatic experiences, because I still, that makes it more complicated, but I still think if it is true that you have kind of an innate personality, which is probably some composition of inherited traits, kind of your cognitive makeup, and some people could probably, some of that stuff kind of forms in the womb and all this kind of stuff. And then what time is it over there? It is 4:35 p.m. I'm getting a lot of people from different countries. What's going on? That's pretty cool. Go Albania. Nice. Hello from Lake Stan. Where's that at? That's pretty cool. And so if you do have an innate personality, if personality is something you're born with, then it obviously doesn't make a difference what you go through, because as if it would change your personality type. If anything, it would substantiate your personality type. And I do think that that's the case. There's a certain threshold of what people can adapt to given their personality, and there's much resistance over certain different kinds of information that they have the longest struggle with. It's their most enduring struggle, and it repeats, right? And at least from a socionics perspective, that'll either be something that they actually do care about, some kind of information that they value in and of itself, and you can see remnants of it within their worldview. And a lot of times the application of that information is it's imbalanced, and it's embellished, and but it's practically insufficient. It's not doing anything in a way that would suggest that it's a lived experience for the person that's claiming they, for example, if someone is SE suggestive, they might talk about being a kind of boisterous, and I'm going to capture what I want and all this kind of stuff. But practically, if you don't see examples of that, then that would fit more with mobilizing. But you can hear remnants of that information in an IEI, for example, or ILI of extroverted sensation because it's suggestive. But its ability to be incorporated in multiple contexts is going to be greatly limited because it's weak. So my point is, there's going to be a couple of kinds of information that a person repeatedly struggles with, and their attitude towards it will either be one of, I want to get better at this, but I don't know how, or I don't know why everyone cares about this. This is stupid. Like that's kind of how it comes across. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. And so and that's one way to kind of figure out someone's type, is looking, and this is kind of an NI-ish application, so to speak, but seeing behaviors across time and understanding that those behaviors are information metabolism element relevant, that it's kinds of information that the person's metabolizing over time in a particular way, and you can kind of see that versus some kind of information that a person never really needs help with, and they're kind of preaching about it pretty consistently. They're able to kind of step in and solve problems for other people in that area, and they have much to say and nuanced applications to that information. So if someone is an extroverted, logical type, and that's their lead element and function, then being able to understand whether something is profitable or not, or something is factually accurate or not, or if something works effectively or doesn't, that kind of person is, they're going to be preaching that information, and they will be correcting other people on that misapplied information, and it will be pretty common sense to them. It won't be really difficult for them to achieve that. And then from there, you realize that, okay, if that's the case, then I should expect that they really do care about relationships, and they really want to understand how to integrate a healthy relationship in their life, because they know they need it and they're seeking it. And you should hear like remnants of that in their language, and you should be able to see practical examples of their relative ability or inability in order to acquire and metabolize that information. But yeah, so I do think personality is mostly innate. I think that that certain circumstances can impact you in many different ways, but I don't think that they are so impactful that they can drastically reshape your personality type. I mean, unless you have had some kind of traumatic experience, or brain injury or something along those lines. But yeah, that's all I have. Peace.